And welcome to the University of Nottingham PGCEi webinar. My name is Helen Spiropoulos. I'm the Admissions Manager at Stafford Global. And joining me this evening, all the way from the UK, is Dr. Alison. Good evening to you, Dr. Alison.
Good evening, Helen. Lovely to join you again for one of our PGCEi sessions. I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope the students, the prospective students, are going to find the evening really interesting, informative, and really encouraging to join our programme.
Well, I'm sure they will, and I've actually been looking here on my right-hand side, and I can see quite a few students have joined us, even as far as Vietnam. So that's actually very good to see, and we even have from the UAE and KSA and Qatar. So welcome to everyone this evening. How we are going to conduct the webinar is I'm just going to briefly introduce you to Stafford Global and what our function is. I'm then going to hand you over to Dr. Alison, who's going to take you through the program. Towards the end of the presentation, you will have the opportunity to type out any questions that you'd like to ask me or Dr. Alison. Obviously, Dr. Alison will deal more with the academic part of the questions, and I can assist with the application questions. Now, I am going to be looking at these questions quite carefully because a lot of them are identical. Okay, so I'm going to try and group them all together. So please do listen out for the question and that answer. Okay, so let's get started. Who is Stafford Global? Well, Stafford was established in 1993. We are a resource centre for distance learning education in the Middle East. Now, we are a resource centre for 5 UK universities, one of which is the University of Nottingham. And I must say, we have been with the University of Nottingham for many, many years now. Stafford does offer a variety of programs, starting from certificates to diplomas, bachelors, MBAs, MECs, right through until doctorates. So we really do have all the programs for your personal and your professional needs. Now, the mere fact that you are with us this evening means that you have probably been in touch with one of our experienced academic consultants, and our function is to assist you throughout the administration and the admissions process, and to also get that very, very important unconditional offer. Now, we do also offer some academic as well as some administrative support once you have started your program. Okay, so I'm now going to hand you over to Dr. Alison, and I will actually be joining you towards the end of the presentation. Over to you.
Oh, thanks, Helen. I'm Alison Day, and I coordinate the programs in the Middle East. And I'm also a tutor on all of the cohorts. And I've been doing this for quite some time and visiting the UAE over the last few years. So we work very closely with Stafford. And I think the quality of the partnership that we have with Stafford is really, really beneficial to all of the students. So I think you'll find that's a real advantage for joining this course. So let's look at the University of Nottingham. The university is a prestigious university. It's part of the Russell Group of universities in the UK, and it's really popular with undergraduates and postgraduates. And it has a high world ranking, which I think is helpful in terms of international students. And internationally, it's also recognised for groundbreaking research and teaching excellence. So one of the things I can guarantee you is that you will be taught by world expert tutors who have a range of specialisms to offer you. Let's look at the PGCE programme itself. It is a master's programme, and the university is rightly proud of this programme because it has educators who've gone through the programme from at least 70 countries around the world. And should you join this programme, you'll be part of a network of now over 5,000 graduates from all parts of the world, which is really interesting and really important. It's a programme which I think is really suitable for experienced teachers. But having said that, if you love teaching and you want to actually get better at it, the PGCE is definitely a course for you because it involves you looking at your professional practice, whether you're a new teacher or a very experienced teacher, and from a perspective of an international educator, through your own critical thinking and research. But having said that, I think it's also interesting for people who are aspiring to be teachers, who might have connections in schools already. You might be a volunteer, you might be a visitor, you might be doing part-time work. So the course is definitely for you. I think one of its strengths is the fact it's a blended course. And that means that part of that time you'll be working independently with your own computer in your own space, working through the course materials, but equally so, you will be part of a learning community which consists of tutors, fellow students, and normally you'd have a face-to-face at least twice a year with tutors. And of course that's not possible at the moment with COVID, but having said that, we have made some adjustments to the programme and we have several webinars, whole group webinars, and we also have tutorials, group tutorials with no more than 4 to 5 students per group. So there's plenty of opportunities to talk to each other as fellow students, but also with your tutors. So I think that's really important to keep that in mind. I think one of the other strengths of the course is the fact that it's a course which is enabling you to compare teaching approaches from different parts of the world, different countries. Now, normally, that's really an effective part of this course, face-to-face, but it's been possible to do this through the 2 courses that we've been running since last March when COVID stopped our travel. And both of those courses have been really successful and have allowed people to develop a learning community online, which has been very vibrant and very active, and I think has produced some very interesting results. So please don't be discouraged about the fact that we are online at the moment. Obviously, I hope that that will change in the future. Let's look at the course itself. Okay, the course consists of 3 compulsory modules, and those will be completed over a period of 12 months. And the modules themselves include educational values and aims, again from an international context and perspective, followed by another module which looks very closely at teaching and learning, again from an international context and point of view. And finally, a module which looks at inquiring into educational practice. And this allows you to engage in a piece of personal research, looking at student understanding within your own context. And although each of these modules are standalone and quite separate, there are threads that run between each of those modules, although you'd actually be working through them in a sequential way. And the thing that I think is probably most important for you to know is that each of those modules includes some very interesting resources. In fact, a wealth of resources to support your learning. And this would include readings, it would include videos, it includes all sorts of activities that you will engage with. And finally, each of those parts of the programme finish with a 4,000-word assignment, which is marked at master's level. Each of the modules themselves accrues 20 credits, which as a total becomes 60 credits, which I'll come to in a moment and show you how those can be translated into further study. If you successfully complete the course, you can use your 60 credits to give you automatic access to a master's in education. And there are several options for this, which you can choose from when you finish your course. They include a master's in education itself, a master's in special educational needs, and a master's if you choose to go down this track, in educational leadership and management. And again, all the materials and resources for those courses will be online and tutorial support, as it is with PGCEi. And you'll also have individual support as well as group discussions online. So it's a very, very interesting part of the course, and many of our students complete the PGCE and go on to further study. But you don't have to do this immediately. There is a timeline, but you can leave your studies for a little while and come back to do the Masters when it perhaps feels more appropriate for you. So let's think a little bit about the entry requirements. What does the university, or what would the university require of you to join this programme? Well, it needs a bachelor's degree with at least a second-class honours degree, or something which is equivalent, or an approved professional qualification to a level of or equivalent to the second-class honours degree. And if English is not your first language, you have to, or you must achieve an IELTS academic qualification with at least 6.5 as a minimum, and with no less than 6 in all the other elements of reading, writing, speaking and listening. You should also be an established educator, meaning that you have your own context in which you work, and you could be a classroom teacher, you could be a teaching assistant, or as I said earlier, you could be a volunteer at the moment. But it's important that you have that contact. It's also important that you have access to a computer and you do have those regular connections to a regular educational context. But it could actually be an online teaching connection if that's how it's working for you at the moment. I think it's really important for me to say at this point as well that non-standard applications are welcomed and will be considered on a case-by-case basis. So please don't be discouraged because you're not perhaps in a conventional situation at the moment, or you don't actually have a class of your own. Please do be encouraged to apply. So there's several things that you need to collect and make sure you have access to. And one of those would be a transcript of your degree certificate or academic work. So please try and find that. It's really important. And you will need one reference, either an academic reference or a work-related reference. And you need to do a personal statement of approximately between about 500 and 700 words. And I personally think this is the really important part of your application. And this is your chance to talk about your interest in teaching and learning and why the course is important to you. So please spend some time putting that together and asking maybe a partner or a friend to read it and check that it actually tries to engage the reader in your interest and passion for teaching and learning. I also think your CV is important, and I think sometimes people miss out some of the things that they've done and experienced and courses that they've been involved in simply because it isn't about education. But I think those other things that you've done make you the person that you are. And I do think that's important for us to read what else you're interested in as well as education. So try to put things onto your CV that include everything that you think would make you sound an interesting possibility as a candidate. The other things are quite obvious: the application form, a copy of your passport, and of course your proof of English. Now currently we are accepting applications for the October 2021 intake, and this may seem a long time away, but it does take time to make applications and it does take time for applications to be processed. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, to start to do this as soon as possible. The programme starts at the very beginning of October, and the deadline for your applications will be the 27th of September. And all the courses are very popular. and places are limited. So if you're sure that you'd like to be part of this course, please don't hesitate and start to apply right now. Following your application and successful application, I would like to just point out that the first thing you'd be doing on this course would be what we call an induction event, which includes interactive workshops on the 15th and 16th of October. And these are dates to really note, because attendance at these 2 days, these 2 workshops, is actually compulsory if you're going to be part of the course. So it's really important to book those in your diary well in advance. And those 2 days are a sort of teaching block, a solid teaching block of quite intensive tutoring, where you meet your personal tutor and you meet a lot of your fellow students. And it's building up that interactive community, learning community, which will be important and very much part of the course, because you'll be able to communicate with other students via the forums that we run online. So it is a very important time to create the beginnings of a course and a community. So please do bear those dates in mind. There's some information here on this slide about the costings. You'll see the total fee is 25,700 AEDs, and you'll see that there is an exclusive Stafford grant for this, which is really, really helpful. And the application fee, 735, is payable on submission of your application. And if you need any more details about this, I'm absolutely certain that Stafford staff will be very happy to talk to you about this. I think I'd just like to add something else before we start to look at questions. And we do understand at the university that it is really hard to work and study at the same time. And people worry about this. How will I be able to do it? Will I be able to fit this in? And I can honestly reassure you that students in the past have worried about it too, and have found that very quickly they've been able to establish a work schedule that works for working during the day at their job and perhaps doing some work in the evening towards the course. And some students have done no work during the week and perhaps done some work towards the course at weekends. But it does work out, so let me reassure you about that. We have had very, very few dropouts during all the time I've worked on these programs. It is very, very rare. So please let me reassure you that it is doable and it is enjoyable. So I'm going to suggest now that we move towards questions, and I'm very happy to answer anything, and I'm sure Helen will be able to help with some of your questions too. And if you do need to leave now, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to accepting your applications. So shall we start with some questions, Helen, and see what people would like to know?
Absolutely. Okay, so I do have quite a few questions that is related to English, the IELTS requirement. It is very important to submit your degree certificate, transcript, any other qualifications that you may have done. And if you can try and actually submit them as soon as possible, your academic consultant will be able to advise you if you do require to undertake that IELTS examination. Okay, so do get in touch with us as soon as possible. The reason for this as well, I'd just like to add that if you do require to undertake the IELTS examination, they do book up quite quickly at the various centres that do offer this. So we don't advise that you leave it for the last minute to do this examination, because you then have to try and find a slot. So the sooner you do this examination, the quicker you'll be able to get your results. And so when it's time for you to apply in October, you already have that final IELTS examination result. I would like to just reiterate here very importantly that the examination you're going to undertake, if you have to do an IELTS exam, must be the IELTS academic. The university will not accept the IELTS general. Okay, so that's quite a popular question, Alison, that has just come up. You know, quite a few students have mentioned that. Okay, another issue that I can see from Shanaz, she doesn't have a passport. So, Shanaz, if you don't have a passport, if there's any other form of identification, like an ID, a marriage certificate, whatever it is, that that's really quite valid at this point, you can submit that as well as for identification. Okay, a very popular question, Alison. Can you just explain how many hours a week do I really need to dedicate to this program? I mean, it's a very popular question. I know a lot of applicants are very busy individuals. So on average, how many hours a day would a student need to actually spend on their studies?
Well, we sort of give the advice. The average would be about 200 hours per module. Now that seems a lot, but if you break that down, it works out about 14 hours a week. And I think it's easier to say 14 hours a week, which seems enormous, but it isn't always 14 hours every single week. You can actually take some of that back. But I think it would be fair to say, on average, about 14 hours a week, which is about 2 hours a day. Now, that does seem a lot, but students do get into the routine of working on things, particular things on particular days, and perhaps doing a little bit more at weekends. And we really understand that this is an issue. And we would encourage you, therefore, to do the course materials. If you don't have too much time, just do the course materials. There are other students who do have more time, and they can extend their work in the modules, so there are opportunities to do that. But to do the course, you will be absolutely fine to do the course materials themselves within about 14 hours a week.
Okay, and if your IELTS is not of the required score, if it's below 6.5, then unfortunately the university may not accept that as a valid English test. But the consultants at Stafford will be able to advise you if there are any other tests that you can actually, for example, there's a triple IBT, which is the home-based test. So you can actually look at doing other tests to meet that English requirement. Remember what I have said is that we can also look at your degree certificates as well to ascertain whether you would require to actually do that IELTS exam. So please do get in touch with us regarding that. Okay, right, and after I have completed this program, can I work in a primary school immediately?
Yes, you could, but I think you have to be clear that this program doesn't give you qualified teacher status. This is the theoretical side of being a teacher. So you would need to find a school in your location. If you're working in the UAE, there are schools in the area which would help you gain your practical side. Certainly if you are working in the UK, that applies too. I'm not sure about other parts of the world at this moment, but generally speaking, you will be able to add to this course to gain your qualified teacher status. Having said that, there are lots of schools that would accept or do accept this as a qualification to work in schools and work alongside children anyway, and that will be true in the UK. Okay?
Okay, good. And Manal's question is, I do understand that there are virtual workshops at the moment during this COVID period. Can you please advise what will be covered during these virtual sessions?
Yes, what we try to do is to add to the module teaching. In the teaching in the module, you'll have lots of things to read, lots of things to reflect on. You'll have videos to watch. You'll be asked your opinions. All of the time you will be encouraged to think theoretically, think critical thinking, and moving towards your own opinions in a written assignment, which of course is graded. Now, the virtual webinars that we do will be lectures in the form of lectures with lots of information and lots of slides and lots of resources to support this learning. And alongside that will be the tutorials where the tutor, your personal tutor, will be able to discuss specific parts of this learning and give you more examples or help you discuss it, or attend to some of the things that you might be worried about, that you don't understand. So it's a mixture of things, but all of those experiences are really important to be put together as part of the learning, as part of each module. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and I'd also just like to add a little bit about these workshops, because I do see questions that have come through. These workshops are mandatory. Okay, and yes, they are virtual, but the good thing about these workshops is that they are scheduled on a Friday and a Saturday, which is the UAE weekends. So there's no need for you to take time off from your very busy schedule during the week teaching. So it is scheduled on a Friday and a Saturday. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alison, they normally run from about, is it 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. UAE time? Obviously with breaks in between, but they normally are run over the weekends.
Yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question, Helen. What I was talking about were the things that happened after the 2 days. So thank you for picking that up. And yes, the 2 days are slightly different from the answer I gave. It pretty much is full-on teaching over the 2 days, and you are expected to be there. But none of the sessions are longer than 45 minutes, because we recognise that, you know, being online, like Helen has just said, from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock, 4:30, is actually a very long day. So there will be breaks in between after 45 minutes. There's a lunch break, which gives you time to eat as well. But the way that these sessions are organised is that it gives you an opportunity to meet with lots and lots of different people across the course. So you're basically moving in groups throughout the day, unless it's a session that is led by one of the tutors, where everyone is obviously going to listen and watch the same thing. But it is intensive, and it is something that you do need to be part of, but it isn't exhausting because of the way it's organised. So thank you for picking that up, Helen.
Okay, and I do see questions coming through. Are these workshops in Europe? These workshops are conducted by the university directly from the UK, but you can be in the comfort of your own home on a Friday and a Saturday, and you know, anywhere in the world, whether you're in Egypt, whether you're in Qatar, whether in UAE, or even in Vietnam. So that is fine. You can do it from the comfort of your home. Okay, and Dr. Alison and her team will be actually doing it directly from the university. Okay. Yeah. A very common question that is coming through as well, Alison, is about practicals. Do I get assessed in class? Do I have to do any practices or practicals? Do I have any supervision?
No, you don't. You won't have to do any practicals, and you won't be observed in class. But we do ask you to use your classroom practice within your written responses. We ask you to reflect on your work in your classroom. So no one is watching you, but you're probably watching yourself, and you're thinking about what you're doing. And that's part of the work. So we'll give you lots of challenging things to think about in terms of your teaching, and we give you lots of challenges to reflect on. But you are the one who will be doing that work and observing yourself doing it, and then discussing it with your tutor through assignments and other pieces of work. And also talking about it with your fellow students when we have our group tutorials, that you won't be supervised, no, and you won't be assessed in your class. I do think it's quite, you also don't need an official mentor in the school, but I do think it's good to have somebody in your school that you can talk to about your course and share ideas with. We found that's very, very helpful. And it's particularly helpful if you have two people, this might be the case, where two people know each other, you work at the same school, and you're both doing the course at the same time. That is really helpful to share ideas across.
Absolutely, and we do encourage that you do try and apply for the program with your friend or your fellow colleague, because you do get that local support as well, but also you obviously engaging with a lot of other students from across the Middle East or quite further afield. So Alison is quite correct. The more support you have together, as well as from the university, does actually help to get through the program. Okay, and I just want to make a note here. There is quite a few questions coming through again about English. The English requirement is really based on your academics, on your undergraduate degree. Again, as I have mentioned, please do send these to your experienced academic consultant. We'll then be able to assess whether you do require to do that IELTS exam or not. Okay, it's very difficult for us to try and answer these questions here if we don't actually see all the paperwork. Okay, so we'd like to see all your academic qualifications, specifically your undergraduate degree and transcripts, and our academic consultants will advise you if you really do require to do that IELTS or not. Okay, do we have any placement assistance? Okay, unfortunately, it's a very good question, Fazna, but unfortunately the university North Stafford can actually provide any placements. But as Dr. Alison has said, in order to do this program, you can actually even volunteer at a school, even if it's 2 to 3 days a week, that is acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay, and a question for you, Dr. Alison. Do I need to choose a particular subject I want to specialize in? For example, I would like to specialize in maths. Is there such a function?
Well, it wouldn't be part of this course. There's nothing at all to prevent you from specialising in maths, if that's what you'd like to teach. Because I didn't mention this earlier, but the course is relevant to teachers who come from nursery, kindergarten, primary, secondary, and even higher education. And I guess in your question, you're probably interested in teaching maths, maybe at secondary. So it's quite important that you maybe find yourself in a situation, in a context where you can be, like Helen's just said, on a voluntary basis, if that is what you're seeking to do, and you're not a teacher already of teaching maths in secondary. If you were teaching maths in primary, it would be part of the programme that you'd be teaching all subjects across. But the course itself is relevant to all of those different age phases and different curricula as well. And that's the richness of this course, that the course is really based on teaching and learning and how that works. And these subjects are sort of in the background. It's the mechanics and the theoretical parts of theory and learning that we share. And the groups are very, I think, very important in terms of the richness of the dialogue, because you do come from different curricular interests and different age group interests. But the course itself does not particularly take you down that track of teaching mathematics, or in fact teaching any other subject.
Okay, and this is a very popular question, is which countries can I work in once I have obtained this qualification?
Well, our experience has been that it's acceptable in very many countries. We have at least as I said at the beginning, 70 countries represented by people who are on the course. The university is internationally recognised, and along with that is the course. And I didn't mention this earlier either, but our track record of people moving forward in their careers as a result of this qualification is actually very, very positive. People have found jobs who didn't have jobs in education initially, and also people have been promoted because of the course. So when we do keep records, people get back to us and tell us what the course has led to. So it is very positive, and I'd want to be very encouraging to say that this course is recognised across worldwide, because the university has contacts. The University of Nottingham has contacts worldwide. So yes, be encouraged on that particular question.
Absolutely. And this is actually a very, very good question that has come through is, can you explain the difference between a PGCEi and the PGCE?
Yes, I can. The international part, the PGCEi, means that it's a theoretical course. It's a recognised certificate in that it leads to a master's in the same way that a PGCE does. But a PGCE is usually attained in the UK, because with it is the qualified teacher status part. So tutors are able to go and visit students in their classes, in their schools, and also assess the practical side of teaching. That is the main difference between the two courses. So one has its practical side, which leads to qualified teacher status as well, and the other is a theoretical qualification, which is recognised in the same way as the PGCE is, to lead to a master's if you want it to, but also to work in schools.
Right, good. And just to follow up on that, a question by Shahinaz. Yes, this degree or this qualification is 60 credits of a master's degree. Okay, and then the follow-up question is that if I do not submit my assignments in time, do I fail this program?
You don't fail the programme, but you would fail the assignment if you didn't submit on time. The university is quite strict about this, and it is important to submit your assignments to the deadline that's specified. Otherwise, you lose grades on your assignment marking every day, and you know that's sad. However, you are allowed to resubmit. And this does happen sometimes. It does happen if somebody fails an assignment. It's rare, but it does happen, and particularly on the first assignment, when you're trying to establish yourself, if you haven't been writing in an academic way for a long time. But don't be put off by that, because it is possible to rewrite and resubmit. But the deadlines are really crucial. They're really important, and we always stress that at the beginning of the course, so that students make note of the deadlines and really try to stick to them. Yeah. But having said that, just let me add one more thing, Helen, to that.
Yes.
The deadlines are reasonable. No one's expected to try and do something too soon or too quickly. The deadlines are well spaced out, so that you have plenty of time to do the coursework and then do the written work and then submit your assignments. So there's no rush. It is really, really well spaced out.
Good, and that also brings me to some questions regarding assessments. There are no examinations in this program, however, there are assignments. So just a question for you, Alison, on the assignments. How many words, a word count, actually are the assignments worth? And what would happen if I don't meet that word count?
Okay, well, the word count is 4,000. Each of the assignments would expect you to write 4,000 words, 10% less or 10% more is acceptable. If you don't meet that, it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. But I think it would be a worry if you weren't quite writing enough. But one of the things that happens in Module 1, which I think is really helpful, and it's the only module that this happens in, you are allowed to submit a draft assignment, and your tutor will look through your draft assignment and give you lots of feedback and lots of help. And that includes looking at the word count as well. And your feedback, or the feedback you receive, you can then work on, and there's plenty of time to do that before you then submit the final copy of the first assignment. So there is lots of support to help you in terms of the content of the assignment, the quality of the writing, and the length of it. It's the only time it happens on Module 1, but I think students do find that really, really helpful.
Good. And another question regarding credit exemptions. Does the university take credit exemptions for any qualifications that I may have completed or half completed in another institution? And follow up on that, do I get exemptions based on my vast years of working experience?
No, not generally. But in terms of the credits that you'll gain on this course, is that if you choose to go towards a master's, the credits will be based entirely on your fulfilment of modules 1, 2, and 3. If that was the question, and that's the focus of it, I think it probably is. If you're thinking about qualifications in terms for application, then there is a bit of a range of possibilities here. And I think I said that, you know, people who have slightly unusual qualifications and application, the application is still considered as a special case. So don't be discouraged. But I think the question was probably the former. Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to add here that the university will not exempt you from any of the modules if you have got vast years of working experience. But I would like to add that in the event that you do not have a bachelor degree, and for whatever reason, we have a lot of applicants that may have lost their bachelor degree in their move, or you know, could have been mislaid somewhere. We do look at the application on what we call a non-standard entry. Okay, and a non-standard, this is a special case that Dr. Alison was also referring to. A non-standard entry would require you to have vast years of working experience. And then again, your academic consultant at Stafford will be able to advise you on that as well. And here, it's very important that we do assess your CV, and your CV has to be very, very, very strong so that we can actually advise if your application will be on that particular non-standard entry. Okay. A question regarding the degree certificates. Will the degree certificates state online distance learning?
No, absolutely not. It's a really great question because we do get asked this lots, and it won't. Because it's a blended piece of work, a blended time of study, which involves communication with tutors and other students and written work. It doesn't say distance learning. It just says your qualification from University of Nottingham PGCEi, and that's it. So it's a big relief to many that it doesn't say distance learning, because it isn't distance learning in its true sense. It's actually blended learning.
Absolutely. And your academic consultant will be able to provide you with a sample of that degree certificate, so you can actually see exactly what you will be gaining once you complete your qualification. Will I be able to progress to a master's with various specializations after I have completed my PGCEi?
Yes, absolutely. And think of the ones I've already mentioned. The specialisms offered by the university particularly would be about special needs, also leadership and management. Those are the two main ones, and the straightforward masters as well. But within each of those degrees, there will be lots of choices, which will give you a chance to make an individual plan and program for yourself. So I think you'd find that very interesting.
Okay, and will we have a graduation ceremony? I do understand that it's COVID, and I may not be able to travel, but will I have a graduation ceremony of some kind?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great question. It's been awful to have no face-to-face graduations, and we're hoping it will happen this July, actually, that we will go back to face-to-face. But in the meantime, we've had virtual graduations, and we've expected everyone to be part of that, and they have. People have joined virtually, and we've been able to put messages up there from students from different parts of the world, because you know the PGCE course is not just in the UAE, it's in South America, it's over in the Far East, and it's in Spain, and so we expect students from all over to join together at this virtual graduation, and it has been fun, and it has been really significant, and made you feel as a student that you have actually graduated, even if you haven't been able to come over to the UK. But having said that, normally, when we do have a proper graduation ceremony, it's really great to see people come from UAE, but also other parts of the world who've been part of our course, to actually come to graduation and see you get your certificates. It's lovely, it's brilliant. So I'm hoping that we will be back to that before too long. But let me reassure you that something interesting does happen to mark your graduation instead of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd just like to make a point here. Non-standard entry means that you do not hold an undergraduate degree, and therefore that case or your application will be viewed based on your vast years of working experience. Does that mean that you get a different certificate to everyone else? Absolutely not. You'll get the exact same certificate as everyone else, but it's just the way that you enter the program may differ from the standard route. Okay, so I just want to make that very clear. You do not get different certificates if you're a non-standard entry applicant or a standard entry applicant. Okay, so I just want to make that very clear. Okay, and if I do happen to fail my first assignment, will the tutors be able to advise me as to where I have gone wrong so that I can resubmit it?
Absolutely. Oh, please don't think that you're going to fail the first assignment just like that. It is honestly, it doesn't happen very often. It's good to mention it, to say it does happen. It doesn't happen very often. But what you do receive from your tutors is some written feedback on every assignment in some detail to tell you how you're doing, because obviously we don't want you to fail, but also we want you to improve with each assignment and gain better grades with each assignment. So we do give you feedback. And if you do happen to fail, you're given lots of support by your tutor, who will go through in great detail the issues and help you to get yourself organised to make sure that when you do a resubmission, you do pass. It is an acceptable grade. So absolutely.
Okay, and if I wish to actually complete this program in less than 12 months, A, is this possible? And B, is it advisable?
Right, interesting question. I'll answer the last part first. I don't think it's advisable because it does go, the time goes very quickly. It's not quite 12 months in terms of your actual work, because it's 12 months in terms of all the administrative parts that needs to go alongside it. But your actual work is probably more like about 9 months. 8 to 9 months of engaging with the course. And it is quite intense, as I've already told you, through the amounts of time you need to spend on this each week. So I don't think it's advisable. We absolutely discourage people from doing fast track. Occasionally, very, very occasionally, there has been an exception, and that's very occasionally, and it might be somebody who has an incredible amount of time on their hands, but it's really unusual. And I definitely wouldn't recommend it, because I think the course needs to be attacked and engaged with in depth. And I also think it's important to do it with your other colleagues as well. As we said at the beginning, that you gain from talking to each other and sharing, ideas and encouraging each other. So it's a very lonely path if you do it on your own. But I definitely wouldn't encourage you to try and do it in less than the time that is required.
Absolutely. And can I stop my studies for a short while and then resume again?
Yes, you can. And sometimes things happen during this year that you hadn't anticipated. This happens quite often, that you might be ill. I wouldn't want you to be ill, but you might be ill, or a close family member might be ill. That all sorts of things might happen that mean that you get slightly behind on your course. And you can apply for extensions to assignments if they're needed. If you're ill, you do need to have proof of evidence that you have been ill, but you can actually ask for that time. But if things become too much and you feel that you need some time away, you can apply for what's called a voluntary interruption of studies, which we say a VIS for short, and that can be anything up to a year. And that's negotiated between yourself and the tutor and student services. And you just literally stop where you got to in your course, take your time out, and then come back and resume at the point at which you stopped. So yes, that is possible.
Excellent. And a follow-up question to that is, what would be the maximum duration permitted for me to complete the course?
2 years. 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Good. Okay, so that gives you more than enough time if you need to take the break. Okay. Yes. Is this webinar recorded? And I've got quite a few questions coming through from students regarding this. Absolutely, the webinar will be recorded, and I will be sending it through to you tomorrow. Okay, so please do look out for my email, but I definitely will send you the recording, so you really can refer back to any answers and questions that Dr. Alison has actually mentioned today. Okay, and I think that's about it. I've managed to actually put all the questions together, and they're very, very interesting questions and quite similar actually. And as Dr. Alison has said, we are currently accepting applications for the upcoming October 2021 cohort. I would like to just end off by stating that the October cohort only accepts 100 students in the program. Okay, so if you really do want to apply and to start your program in October, I definitely do encourage you to submit your application documents as soon as possible to your personal academic consultant. They will be able to review them. If you do require an IELTS, they will advise you as well. But the sooner you send these documents through to the team, the quicker we can actually get you into the system, and we do not want you to miss out on starting your program. Okay, thank you very much everyone for joining me. It was great having you all. Fantastic questions. Again, always a pleasure to have you with us, Alison, and hope that we'll see you all in the October cohort.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Bye.